Hollywood sold her dreams, but Islam gave her reality. That one line captures the essence of her journey, a journey that shattered illusions and revealed a truth deeper than any red carpet or flashing light could ever provide. For years, she was living inside a world designed to distract, crafted to keep her chasing the next role, the next award, the next wave of attention. She was surrounded by everything society told her she should want: luxury, status, admiration. From the outside, she was the image of success, but on the inside, something was breaking. She would smile for the cameras and cry in silence later. She had houses, cars, designer clothes, but none of them could fill the growing emptiness inside her chest. The dreams Hollywood sold her were glittering, seductive lies. They promised happiness through fame, purpose through popularity, and peace through wealth. But every achievement only brought her higher on a ladder that led nowhere. She began to realize that every script she acted out, every role she played, was just another mask hiding her soul from herself. She wasn't just pretending on screen, she was pretending in life, pretending to be fulfilled, pretending to be content, pretending that the applause was enough. And in her quiet moments, she knew the truth. She didn't even recognize the woman staring back at her in the mirror. Then one day, her heart was touched by something she couldn't explain. A simple verse, a conversation with someone sincere, a moment of silence that felt like divine intervention. That was her first encounter with Islam, not through arguments or debates, but through peace. A peace she hadn't known her entire life. It was like something pure had reached into her and unlocked a part of her she didn't even know existed. She started reading, listening, asking. And with every step closer to Islam, she stepped further away from the fantasy world she had been living in. Islam didn't come to her as a religion of rules, but as a faith that made her feel seen. It didn't ask her to perform, it invited her to reflect. It didn't want her image, it wanted her heart. And for the first time, something, wasn't demanding perfection. It was asking for sincerity. It was calling her back to her purpose, back to the one who created her. And with that realization, she started letting go. Not because she hated Hollywood, but because she no longer needed it. What she once chased began to lose its shine. What once made her feel powerful now felt hollow. And what once defined her no longer fit who she was becoming. She left behind the roles, the scripts, the public image, not in weakness, but in strength. Because it takes strength to walk away from a world that rewards you for pretending. It takes courage to step into a life that values your soul over your image. And it takes faith to believe that what's unseen can be more real than everything this world puts in front of you. Islam gave her reality. A reality that didn't shift with trends, a reality that wasn't built on likes or followers, a reality grounded in faith, in prayer, in connection with something eternal. She found her creator, and in doing so, she found herself, no longer lost in a dream, no longer acting for a world that didn't care about her heart. Now, she lives with peace, not because life is perfect, but because she finally knows who she is, why she's here, and where she's going. Because in the end, Hollywood sold her dreams, but Islam gave her the truth. She chose truth over applause. That decision didn't come easy. It wasn't a dramatic moment in front of cameras or a sudden rejection of fame. It was a slow, painful awakening. Applause had always been her oxygen. The claps, the praise, the headlines. It all made her feel alive, like she mattered, like she had value. From a young age, she was taught that recognition was the goal, that if people cheered for you, loved you, envied you, then you were winning, and so she gave her all to chase that sound. She molded herself to fit the image they wanted. She smiled when she was breaking. She posed when she wanted to disappear. She lived for approval, not truth. But deep inside, something didn't sit right. The roles she played were becoming less and less about art and more about image, less about storytelling and more about selling. selling beauty, selling desire, selling illusions. And every time she received praise for something that didn't reflect her heart, she felt more hollow. The applause that used to lift her up started to feel like chains. Because what good is praise when it's not for who you truly are? What good is applause when it echoes in a soul that feels unseen? Then the truth began to knock, gently at first, in quiet moments between scenes, in the stillness after the makeup was wiped off. She began to question, what am I chasing? Why am I always tired? Why does the love of millions feel so cold? That's when she stumbled upon something different, a voice that didn't ask her to be perfect, but to be real, a message that didn't push her to impress the world, but to reflect on herself. Islam didn't shout, it whispered. And in those whispers, she heard something she hadn't heard in a long time: honesty. The more she learned about the faith, the more she saw a mirror, not of what she was, but of what she could become. Islam taught her that value isn't in looks or likes, it's in sincerity. It's in being true to your Creator, and through that, being true to yourself. That message shook her, because it meant she had to let go of everything she once thought mattered. The image, the fame, the validation. She realized she had built her life on applause, but applause fades, and when it does, you're left with silence. Islam gave her something to hold onto in that silence. A truth that didn't change, a purpose that didn't depend on performance. So she made a choice, a quiet, powerful choice. She chose truth over applause. She walked away from the world's approval to seek the approval of her Lord. She left behind roles that made her look strong but made her feel weak. She stepped away from the crowds that cheered for her image but ignored her soul. And in that choice she found peace, not the loud, glittery kind, but the kind that sinks deep into your bones. The kind that stays when the lights go out and the audience is gone. People didn't understand. They called her crazy, said she threw her career away, but she didn't see it that way, because she knew, when you live for applause, you die when it stops. But when you live for truth, you finally start to live. She gave up being admired to be authentic. She gave up the stage to stand in front of her Creator, and for the first time, she wasn't acting. She was just. Real. She chose truth over applause, and in that choice, she found everything applause could never give. Islam gave her peace Hollywood couldn't. That's not just a statement, it's her reality. For years, she lived in a world that celebrated chaos. A world that ran on constant motion, loud distractions, non-stop attention. Hollywood was noise, beautiful, glittering noise, but noise nonetheless. There was no pause, no stillness, no real silence. And within that noise, she lost herself. From red carpets to late night parties, from interviews to endless shoots, she was always surrounded by people, yet always felt alone. And the higher she climbed, the heavier her soul became. People saw her as lucky. You're living the dream, they said. But what no one saw was the anxiety behind the makeup, the fear behind the smile, the exhaustion behind the success. She had everything the world could offer: money, fame, power, influence. But not peace, not the kind that lets you rest your head at night with a quiet heart. Not the kind that lets you cry and still feel held. Not the kind that makes you feel whole when no one's watching. That peace she never found in the spotlight. It didn't live there. Hollywood demanded performance, always be on, always look good, always say the right thing, and if you falter, the world turns on you. It was a game of image, and the truth is image doesn't bring peace. It brings pressure. The pressure to maintain, to impress, to hide every crack in the foundation. And after years of pretending, of surviving, of playing roles on and off screen, she started to break down. Her soul was craving something more, not more success, more meaning, not more followers, more truth. That's when Islam found her, not through a grand debate or a viral video. It found her through a quiet moment when she was tired of running. She stumbled across a verse from the Quran, just one verse, but it hit her like nothing ever had. It was calm, it was clear, it was real, and it spoke directly to her heart. She started reading more, asking questions, listening, and the more she learned about Islam, the more she began to feel something she hadn't felt in years: peace. Islam didn't ask her to be perfect. It didn't ask her to perform. It asked her to be honest, to be sincere, to turn inward and upward. It told her she was more than her image, more than her body, more than her brand. Islam reminded her she was a soul, with purpose, with worth, with a creator who knew her better than she knew herself. And that kind of love, that kind of peace Holly would never give her. She started to pray, at first awkwardly, quietly, then deeply. She covered her body, not out of shame, but out of honor. She began to detach from the world's noise and lean into silence, into faith. And in that silence she found healing. The same woman who once needed flashing lights now found peace in the stillness of dawn, in the whisper of prayer, in the recitation of divine words that didn't care how famous she was, only how sincere. People couldn't understand. Why give it all up? They asked, but they didn't see what she had already lost. Hollywood took her energy, her peace, her sense of self. Islam gave it all back. It gave her peace not just in moments, but in meaning. A peace that lasted even when life got hard. A peace that made her feel seen, not by millions, but by the one who created her. Islam gave her peace Hollywood never could, and that peace was worth everything she walked away from. Modesty became her strength. In a world where image is everything, that was a revolutionary act. For most of her life, she had been taught that her value was tied to how she looked, how she dressed, how much attention she could attract. Hollywood reinforced that message every single day. The more revealing, the more glamorous, the more bold, the more successful you became, and she played along because it worked. The magazines praised her style. The directors praised her appearance. The world praised her confidence, but deep down, she wasn't confident. She was conforming. Every time she stepped onto a red carpet, there was pressure. Pressure to outdo the last look, to be noticed, to be talked about. What she wore became a competition, a currency, a mask. She knew exactly how to turn heads, how to walk, how to smile for the flash, but no one saw what that cost her. Every inch of skin she revealed, every fake smile she put on. It took a piece of her dignity. Not because she wasn't proud of her body, but because she was tired of it being the only thing people saw. She wanted to be more than beautiful. She wanted to be respected. When she discovered Islam, something shifted. She learned that her worth was not based on how much of her body she showed, but on how much she honored herself. For the first time, someone was telling her that modesty wasn't weakness. It was power. That covering herself wasn't about hiding. It was about protecting. That her beauty didn't need to be displayed to be real. That message hit her like a wave of truth. It was the exact opposite of everything she had been told growing up. Everything the industry demanded of her. But it made sense. It felt right. She started dressing differently. At first, the change was subtle: longer sleeves, higher necklines, a sense of care in how she carried herself. And with each step toward modesty, she felt a little freer. She wasn't dressing for anyone else anymore. Not for directors, not for fans, not for validation. She was dressing for dignity, for herself, for her Lord. And as her clothes changed, so did her confidence. Not the loud, performative confidence the world had praised, but a quiet, unshakable one, a confidence that didn't need approval. People around her didn't understand. They called it a downgrade, said she was hiding. That she was losing herself, but they couldn't be more wrong. She was finally finding herself. She wasn't hiding, she was rising. For the first time, people had to see her for her words, her mind, her presence, not her figure. And if they couldn't, then maybe they never really saw her to begin with. Modesty became her armor. It protected her from being objectified. It filtered out the shallow attention she no longer needed. And it allowed her to step into rooms without selling her soul. She walked differently now, not with arrogance, but with purpose, not demanding attention, but commanding respect. Islam taught her that modesty isn't just about clothing. It's about behavior, speech, intention. It's a mindset, a discipline, a declaration that says, I know my worth. And it doesn't come with a price tag. In modesty, she found clarity. In covering, she felt uncovered from the lies of this world. She was no longer chasing attention. She was grounded in something bigger, something purer. Her strength no longer came from how many people watched her, but from the one who watched over her. Modesty became her strength, and in that strength, she became unshakable. She lost the world, but found herself. That sentence carries a weight only those who have truly let go can understand. Because for her, the world wasn't just comfort. It was everything. It was fame, money, status, access, privilege, and constant validation. She lived in rooms most people dream about, sat at tables where billion-dollar deals were discussed. She was invited, celebrated, admired. Her name was a brand, her face was a commodity, and yet with all of it, she felt like a stranger to herself. Because when the world praises a version of you that isn't real, you begin to forget who you truly are. She wasn't born to be fake. She wasn't made to live for likes or wear masks to please crowds. But over time, the industry demanded it. Hollywood is a machine, and once you're in it, it changes you. Quietly, subtly. She began compromising in ways she swore she never would. She said yes to roles she didn't believe in. She laughed at things that disturbed her. She played along to stay relevant, and slowly her soul grew quiet. It stopped speaking up. Until one day it couldn't take it anymore. She began to feel a pull. Something deep, something spiritual. It started as discomfort, a whisper in her heart that said, there has to be more. And then came the search. She looked beyond the surface of things. She explored, listened, questioned. That's when she found Islam, not as a religion of rules, but as a reminder of purpose. Islam didn't ask her to become someone else. It invited her to remember who she already was, who she had always been, underneath the noise, beneath the makeup, behind the camera. But to embrace that truth, she had to let go. Let go of the life she had built. Let go of the people who only loved her when she conformed. Let go of the image that had defined her for so long, and it hurt. Walking away from a world that once celebrated her felt like stepping off a stage in the middle of the spotlight. Silence followed. Some people called her lost. Some said she threw everything away, but in the silence she found something precious. Herself. She found a self that no longer needed applause to feel valuable. A self that didn't need to be seen to feel important. A self that could cry in prayer and feel more fulfilled than she ever did on stage. She rediscovered her voice, not the one scripted by writers, but the one that whispered to God in the dark. She found her boundaries, her beliefs, her courage. She reconnected with her soul, and yes, she lost a lot. Friends disappeared, opportunities vanished, money slowed down, but peace showed up, faith showed up. A sense of identity that was stronger than any brand showed up. And when she stood in prayer, covered in modesty, tears rolling down her cheeks, she realized, this is who I am, not the actress, not the celebrity. Just a woman standing before her Creator, finally at peace. The world had given her everything, but took her soul. Islam gave her her soul back. And in that return, in that surrender, she experienced a richness this world could never offer. She wasn't chasing anything anymore. She was centered, grounded, whole. She lost the world, but in doing so, she gained what mattered most. She found herself, and in finding herself, she found her way back to her Creator. True success is surrendering to the Creator. That's a definition the world rarely teaches. Instead, success is packaged as a checklist. Money, recognition, power, followers, awards, admiration. And she had them all. She walked the red carpets, received standing ovations, graced the covers of magazines. Her life looked perfect from the outside, but inside something was off. There was an ache, a gap between who she appeared to be and who she truly was. She had mastered the performance, not just on screen but off it too. And yet, at night, when the lights went out and the applause faded, she couldn't escape one haunting question. What is all this really for? That question kept returning. It echoed louder every time she forced herself to smile at events she didn't care about, laugh at jokes that felt empty, and promote ideas that contradicted her soul. She began to see the cracks. The lifestyle, the culture, the fame, it was built on sand. One wrong move and everything could collapse. She saw how quickly the world can turn on you, how fast admiration becomes criticism. It was a game, and she was done playing. That's when she started seeking truth, not as a trend, but as a necessity. She was desperate for something real, something that wouldn't shift with public opinion or disappear when the crowd moved on. She studied, listened, reflected. And that path led her to Islam, a path that didn't offer fame, but offered something far greater: clarity. Islam asked her to stop chasing and start surrendering, not to people, not to trends, but to the one who created her. It was there that she began to understand what real success meant. Success wasn't how many people knew her name, it was how well she knew her purpose. Success wasn't about gaining the world, it was about not losing her soul in the process. True success was in the prayer she prayed in the stillness of the night, when no one was watching but the one who truly mattered. It was in lowering her ego, in raising her hands, in admitting that she was not in control, and never had been. That act of surrender, once unthinkable in her old life, became her greatest strength. She learned that real freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's freeing yourself from the chains of ego, pride, and desire. Hollywood had taught her to worship herself. Islam taught her to worship the one who made her, and in that shift everything changed. She no longer felt the pressure to prove anything to anyone. She wasn't chasing validation. She wasn't auditioning for the world. She was living for something higher, something eternal. Surrendering didn't make her weak. It made her powerful because she was no longer afraid of loss. She knew that what was meant for her would come and what wasn't would pass. She found peace in trusting the plan of her Creator. She found power in humility. And with every step she took away from the spotlight and toward the path of faith, she felt lighter, stronger, more grounded. She began to walk with purpose, speak with conviction, and live with contentment, not because life got easier, but because her heart finally knew where it belonged. They called her a success before, when she had everything the world could offer, but she only started calling herself successful when she gave it all up for the sake of truth. Not because she hated what she left behind, but because what she found was greater. True success is surrendering to the Creator, and in that surrender, she found everything she never knew she was searching for.